Hello and a very good morning, and you're welcome to today's Signpost webinar. I'm Mark Gibson and I'm joined by Pat Murphy, who'll be helping us with questions later on this morning. Good morning, Pat.
Morning.
And today we'll be looking at how Ireland, one of Ireland's largest meat companies, is responding to the sustainability challenge and the trends in beef production and consumption. And to tell us all about the ABP sustainability story, we're delighted to be joined by Stephen Connolly, who's Agri Sustainability Manager for Ireland and Poland with ABP. Stephen, you're welcome to the webinar.
I suppose, Mark, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. And maybe, Stephen, before we start into your presentation, you could tell us a little bit about your own background and the work you're doing with ABP.
Yes, so I suppose maybe just a bit of my personal background. So I'm a farmer, come from a farming background. And I suppose my role in ABP as an Agri Sustainability Manager is to build a roadmap for the company, focusing on agri to reduce our carbon footprint. So what research will we be involved in, and how do we get that implemented on farm? So it's very topical at the minute. It's challenging, but something that we're, as a company, are looking forward to.
Yeah, it really is a hot topic at the moment. So we do look forward to your insights and the work that you're doing in ABP, and there are plenty of challenges there for sure. So maybe we could ask you to share your slides with us, and while you're doing that, to remind everybody that if you do have a question that you'd like us to put to Stephen after his presentation, please use the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. Today's session is being recorded and will be available on the Teagasc YouTube channel, as well as being available as a podcast on all of the various podcast platforms. So do use that facility if you're on the move somewhere and you can't look at a video. It's a great way of catching up on the series. So Stephen, we'll hand over to you, and we will chat to you after your presentation.
Brilliant. So I suppose the title of my topic is ABP's sustainability story, but what I'm really going to focus on is the agri part of that, because that has probably the biggest challenges. And before I go into my slides, I think this picture really, it really tells the beef production story of Ireland. And you have your cattle, your high quality cattle. They are high quality. They're a grass-based system. You have your hedgerows and biodiversity in the background, and you have the blue skies, and you have the blue water and the sea behind us. And the picture is taken one of our farmers down in Sligo. And I suppose what we really want to do is how do we enhance all those parts of the production system and the environment. And I suppose hopefully throughout the slides we'll put some numbers on that and show you how we're going to do that. So what we will talk about, I'm going to give you a little overview of ABP. I'll talk about site sustainability. I'll talk a little bit about agri sustainability and a small bit about our regenerative agriculture plans. So a little bit about ABP. So we're one of the largest privately owned agri-food businesses in Europe. We were founded in 1954, and we're across 9 countries. We've 4 divisions. So we have our meat divisions in Ireland, UK, and Poland. We have a renewable division called Olico, which I'll talk a little bit about. We have a protein division, and we also have a pet food division, which is C&D Pet Food. And we've over 12,000 people employed within ABP. Within Ireland, we've 7 processing sites for beef across the country, and we 2 lamb sites, which are based in Navan and Camolan, so it's ICM. So just to touch on, I suppose, Olico, which is our renewables division, and some of you might know about, but I think it really tells, shows where we are as a company in terms of sustainability. So a bit of history of Olico, I suppose, from humble beginnings, where they would have, I suppose, converted waste animal fat into biofuel. Through innovation, through growing the business, they now are dealing with 50,000 customers. And then customers are the likes of your fast food chains, your pub chains, or your restaurants. And what they do, the service they provide is they collect used cooking oil, and they convert that into biofuel. And they also collect the waste food. This waste food goes into digesters, and it's used to generate green electricity and gas. So it really shows, I suppose, the whole circular economy. And I suppose one example of that is, if we take a UK example, is the McDonald's organic milk supply. these farmers, their milk is collected by Arla. It is processed by Arla in their processing facility. The milk goes to McDonald's, and we, Olico, will collect the used cooking oil and food waste. The food waste will go to our nearby digester, which then the energy from this food waste is used then to heat the processing plant for Arla, and the digestate from the digester is then used to fertilize the land to grow the grass. And I suppose the next part of that is we're now using the slurry from these farms in our digesters, and that is generating compressed biogas to fuel the trucks that's collecting the milk from these farms. So I think it's a really good story, and it shows how the whole circular economy can work. So site sustainability, and before I go into this, you have 3 different types of emissions. So you have scope 1 emissions, 2 emissions, and 3 emissions. And I suppose all you need to know from them is scope 1 emissions are emissions that are direct source or site. So it could be, for example, burning fuel to heat water on site. Scope 2 emissions is emissions from energy. And so the one we're really going to talk on today is scope 3 emissions. And these are emissions that are basically emissions that are indirect emissions from our supply chain. So for example, our beef cattle are a scope 3 emission, and they account for approximately 90% of our scope 3 emissions. So anything we can do to change or improve that will have a massive impact on our business, but also our customers. So what is the ABP 2030 sustainability targets? Okay, so before I go into these, it's important to say these are based on, let's say, we're in SBTi targets, and they're backed up and accredited by the Carbon Trust, so they're fully verified and independent. So our targets is within the companies to reduce water by 60%, 40% less energy, 50% less food waste, 50% less single-use plastic, and we aim to plant 1,000 trees per annum. And if you look there on the bottom, you can see that we're well on the way to achieving these. Just going to throw on a pointer, but you can see, look, we're 50% have achieved already with less water. We're 1% away of hitting our 40% energy target, and we've overachieved on our single-use plastic. We have more work to do in planting more trees. So we're in a really good place. And I suppose this is nothing new. We're 10 years at this. So, and some of the milestones are, we were ABP Ellesmere was the first carbon neutral beef processing site in the world. We've European water stewardship, and ABP was the first company to be certified under multiple sites. So all our sites in Ireland have European water stewardship accreditation. And we're the first company with Carbon Trust to get quadruple Carbon Trust award for reducing water, reducing CO2 in our supply chain. So I suppose it just backs up everything that we're doing. And just a small bit on water, I suppose a lot of companies claim that they're water neutral. I suppose ABP is actually a water positive company. So we actually put more water back into the national, the local streams and rivers than we actually take out, because we've such big processing sites, and we process it. It's all clean water, and we're involved in water quality catchment projects across our different sites to try and look at ways even on farm can we improve water quality. Biodiversity, again, it's something that's really, really important to us, and I suppose we have a nurture nature program. And within our sites, we have 250,000 square meters of biodiversity corridors. We've planted 10,500 trees. We've 12,500 plant species. We've 2 wetland habitats. And we also worked with LIT to develop a study to look at the benefits of corridors to pollinators and other species. We're part of the National Pollinator Plan. And I suppose that's within our factory gate. So the next step of this is, what can we do in terms of biodiversity on farm? And we'll touch on that throughout the presentation. Origin Green, we're a founding member of Origin Green. And we are part of the Origin Green voluntary sustainability program, where we are awarded a gold standard certificate in 2022, which is the highest possible accolade as part of the program. So it just again backs up everything we do. It's verified and independent. they're just some of the awards that we've got through along the years. So next up is Agri Sustainability. And so this is a little bit more challenging because it's a little bit outside of our control, whereas your scope 1, your scope 2 is within our factory gates. So as an industry, a beef industry, I think it's important to understand where are we now. And we are in a good place. If using the board BIA data that's collected through our SBLAS quality assurance program, and we look at the carbon data, there's a 9% reduction in farm level carbon emissions from 2015 to 2021, or it's a kilo of CO2 per kg of live weight reduction. And if you look at age of slaughter, which is a hot topic at the minute, since 2010, age of slaughter is reduced from 28 months to 26 months. So again, something that's really positive. So we are in a good place, but we've more to do. And again, we export 90% of our beef. And so as we compare ourselves to where are we compared to international, and we're one of the most carbon efficient producers of beef in the world. So again, that's hugely important. But I suppose, how do we continue to have that competitive advantage for our customers? We all know this nationally. We have a 25% target to reduce emissions, and again, I think can we achieve it, or what can we do to achieve it? And look, it is a challenge, but I think we have the tools there to hit those targets. So what is the ABP's Agri strategy for tackling climate change? So we've two pathways to do this. So number one is national projects driven by collaboration. We can't do this alone, and we need alignment within the industry. So for example, the Teagasc Signpost program, something we're delighted to be involved in at an industry level. We're involved in the MTI, which is called Meat Technology Ireland, which was developed with industry. And in phase 1, it looked at very much within the factory gate, looked at meat quality. But phase 2 of MTI is looking at, I suppose, our supply chain and our beef cattle. How do we make them more sustainable? So key projects we're working on with the MTI project is the role of genetics to reducing methane production from our cattle, looking at how to optimize age of slaughter, and we'll touch on a slide on that. We collaborate with Animal Health Ireland, ICBF, which is the Irish Cattle Breeding Federation in Teagasc, and also Borbia. So we're very lucky to have them organizations. They have the infrastructure, the databases, and I suppose the research and knowledge that I think gives Irish Inc. a huge competitive advantage over competitors. I suppose pathway 2 is, which I'm going to talk to you in the next couple of slides, is ABP specific solutions to reducing our carbon footprint. And they include our demonstration and research farms in Ireland and the UK. We're involved in the Gene Ireland Dairy Beef Programme, which is looking at producing better beef from the dairy herd. We've developed integrated beef programs in Ireland called the Advantage Beef Programme, Blade Farming in the UK, and Horizon in Northern Ireland. We have a new beef benchmark report that allows our farmers to monitor their carbon footprint versus average farmer and the top 10% of farmers. And we're also involved in a UCD Smart Sport project, and we're working on regenerative agriculture. So if I maybe start with our trial farms, okay? So first of all, why does ABP have trial farms? And I suppose these are not new to ABP. We've began this journey in 2014. And I suppose if we look at the Irish farm, the reason we decided to go that route was we were on the cusp of quota abolition. So we knew we were going to get more beef coming from the dairy herd. At that time, there was the beef animals coming from the dairy herd. We have seen that their carcass, quality or conformation was reducing because there was selection of beef bulls for the dairy herd on easy calving, short gestation, whereas there was no selection on the beef characteristics. So we really want to understand, how is that going to impact our beef farmers? How is that going to impact us as a processor? And how is that going to impact our customers in terms of the quality of the carcass, but also the environmental footprint? So we developed this farm. It's a 300-acre farm. It's not owned by ABP. It's owned by a local family. It's your typical family farm. And I suppose it's not a model farm, but it's a very functional farm. And what it does is when we bring farmers to that farm, they can relate to it. So it's very similar to their own farms, and they feel, well, if genetics works on that farm, it can work on my farm. Okay, so I think that's a really important part and point of difference of this farm. So I suppose our mission on the farm is to increase the economic and environmental sustainability of beef production through animal breeding, but also farming practices. So the first key part is our genetics. So we're involved in the Gene Ireland Dairy Beef Programme, which aims to identify the most suitable beef bull genetics for crossing on the dairy herd. So can we identify beef bulls that are easy calving, short gestation for the dairy farmer, good growth rate for the beef farmer, good feed efficiency, good carcass value, and then for our customer, that they have a good eating experience. So that's what we're trying to do, create wins along the supply chain. When we identify them suitable genetics, can we improve the main pedigree herd? So the pedigree, the Angus, Hereford, Limousin that breed the stock bulls for the dairy herd. So if we can improve the genetics of that herd, we'll have higher genetic merit stock bulls, we'll have more of these high genetic merit calves. And the last part of it was to understand the role of genetics to the environmental sustainability. How does it impact it? So just to touch on the other key research areas in the farm, animal health. If you have a healthy animal performs better, animal younger at finish. There's a huge sustainability benefit there. So we are proactive to animal health rather than reactive. So that's ensuring these calves come from dairy farms, the calf gets colostrum, but also vaccines are key and having a health plan. We're also looking at animal nutrition, so the use of red clover in our farm to reduce soy usage so that we can have more homegrown protein sources and also reduce our fertilizer usage. Soil health and grassland management is critical, and we'll talk about that maybe further on in the presentation. We look at biodiversity and water, and we're also looking at what can we learn from organic to bring it to standard farming practices. So how does the Gene Ireland programme work? So ICBF will identify suitable beef bulls for use in the programme. They link with the major AI companies in Ireland, so that can be Progressive Genetics, Munster Bovine, Dove and Eurogene are the four main ones. Semen is distributed out from these bulls into dairy herds with over 600 farmers involved. And these farmers get a mix of different beef bulls to ensure we don't have an impact of cow type. When these calves are born, ABP, we purchase 420 calves onto the farm, heifers and steers, and we purchase them around 3 weeks of age. We buy roughly 20 calves from each bull, and we buy the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we want it to be a representative sample for our trial work and also to be representative of what's out there in the industry. There's also another roughly 6,000 calves that are born through the programme that are commercially reared by farmers, and ICBF collect the data. So on the farm, I suppose what we do is we rear the animals to heifers at 19 months and steers to 21 months. And the data we collect, so we collect weight data every month, health data, which all goes into ICBF, so we don't keep it to ourselves. It's available for nationally. We then, a proportion of these animals then go to Tully, which is the National Feed Intake Centre, which measures individual feed intake of cattle and also measures methane emissions. So 150 animals go there. And then when the animals are slaughtered, we get the carcass weight data, the conformation data, and the carcass value. And then a proportion of these animals get steak samples taken for meat eating quality. So we're trying to get the full picture. So the dairy farmer, the beef farmer, but also our customers. So what is the results telling us? I think is more important. And I'm just going to look within the Angus breed. I'm going to compare progeny in the best performing bull versus progeny for the worst performing bull within the Angus breed. And what we found to date, that we can get 46 kilos more carcass weight at exactly the same age, okay? Which is worth over 200 euros at the minute. So in terms of economic sustainability, that's that box ticked. When we looked at the carbon footprint, there was a 13% reduction. So when we looked at these animals from the high genetic merit animal versus the low. So again, I suppose it just shows that economic sustainability and environmental sustainability can go hand in hand, and genetics can play a role. I suppose in terms of a farmer, I'm a farmer, I'm purchasing 100 cattle. If I was to purchase calves from the good bull versus the bad bull, there's 20,000 there for me as a farmer. Okay, so really, really important. I think it shows the role genetics can play. And just to show the amount of data involved in this, I think is really, really important. So to date, we've 70,000 live weights from our trial farm, all in ICVF database. We put through over 4,000 animals through the farm to date. We've progeny tested 195 bulls. And to date in Ireland, 385,000 calves have been born from these bulls. So it really shows the scope of the data, and it really shows, I suppose, the impact that this research is having in the country. And I'm just going to show you a short video. It's probably going to be a little bit cringy, and I hope it works with technology. But it's just something what we do when we bring farmers to the farm to show the role the genetics can play. So I really want you, when you see this video, to just, I think you should really highlight it. So we'll hope it plays.
These heifers have been on the farm since they were 3 weeks of age. They're bred from the dairy herd. And what we want to get out of this video is to show the importance of animal breeding and genetics. So if we take our first heifer here, she's by AI bull Coolrain Patriarch. He has a DBI of €75, but when we look within the DBI, his B sub-index is 43. So that'll tell me that, what is his progeny going to be like for carcass weight, conformation, fat, and I suppose carcass value. This heifer here is by Steel Picasso. He has a similar DBI of €68, but when we look at the B sub-index of that bull, it's 22. So considerable difference between, I suppose, the genetic merit for beef between the two sires. And I suppose just to remind people, for our Advantage Beef programme, the minimum genetic merit standard for calves being born in 2023 is €35 or greater. So calves from this bull here won't qualify for the bonus. This heifer is 1 week younger than this heifer, and is a trial farm, so they've been treated exactly the same way. So they've got the same, we'll say, reared the same on milk, the same grazing, same farm, and the same finishing. So I suppose first up on the scales is the heifer by Coolrain Patriarch, and you can see she's weighing 634 kilos. Whereas our heifer here by Steel Picasso is 492, so 140 kilo difference. So when these animals are processed in ABP Slaney in the coming days, we'll be able to see, what is the difference in their carcass weight, their conformation, and their I suppose carcass value. So it really should highlight the importance and the role that animal genetics and selecting that right calf can have in a profitable and more sustainable dairy beef production system. So following on from a previous video of our two heifers on the ABP demo farm, today we're in ABP Slaney, where the two heifers now being processed, and we're going to talk through how they performed. First carcass here is by the sire Coolrain Patriarch, AA5280, and the second carcass here is by Steel Picasso, AA5407. You can see they're similar enough carcass conformation, they've good conformation. But when we look at it, this heifer here graded an R equals, and this heifer here graded an R minus. So, still good performance on this animal, but slightly poorer grade. Fat score, which is important, two lovely carcasses. You can see very similar carcass fat. This heifer here just graded a fat score of 4, versus this heifer here, she graded a fat score of a 3+, but very little difference. Two very suitable in-spec cattle. But then if we look at the big one, what's the difference in carcass weight? The carcass weight of this animal here, 355 kilos of carcass weight, versus the carcass weight of this heifer is 267 kilos. So that's 88 kilo difference in carcass weight between the two heifers. So it really highlights when you're buying calves, you need to start asking the question, what is the sire of that calf? Don't just look at the colour of the calf alone. Ask about genetics. The new CVV is coming. Start asking about the CVV, because it has huge impact in the economics of a dairy beef system.
So I suppose that video really, I think, shows the role genetics can play. And that example for economics, there's a €500 difference in carcass value between them two heifers. And in terms of sustainability, for an extra week, there was an 88 kilo difference in carcass weight. So, huge impact there. So the next part of our research on the farm, in collaboration with MTI, Meat Technology Ireland, is capturing methane data. So we've two green feeds on the ABP demo farm. This is one on the right. And what it's doing is capturing how much methane these animals are producing per day. And what we really want to understand is, what is the methane emissions of our cattle at grass across the different stages of their life? Can we get a full life cycle during grazing, during finishing, during the first winter? Can we identify genetics that can produce lower methane per day? And the other key part of it is to educate ourselves how best to use this technology. It's relatively new, and it probably is not as new on the dairy side, but even to manage how to get the animals, train them to use this equipment to collect the data. So really, really interesting project, and we're delighted to be involved in it with Meat Technology Ireland. So I suppose, what is the carbon footprint of our demo farm? And I suppose what you can see there, and this is on a kg a live weight basis, our carbon equivalent, but we have a 30% lower carbon emissions than the national average dairy beef system, which is really good, really carbon efficient. It shows genetics and using best technology can have, but it's just one farm. And I suppose for ABP to make real impact on our supply chain, which we close to 15,000 suppliers, how do we implement some of this research onto more of our suppliers? And one way we're doing that is through the program called the Advantage Beef Program. It was launched in January 2022. And really why it was developed was to create an integrated supply chain that can improve efficiency on farm and reduce carbon footprint. It's open to dairy bred cattle and suckler bred cattle. And what we wanted to do is, can we implement the research findings from the likes of Teagasc, from our trial farms, onto some of these farms? And a key part of that is genetics. So how do we get more of these higher genetic merit cattle? So we recently began a project with Arrivo Co-op, which is a dairy co-op in the west of the country, where we are working together. We give some free semen to dairy farmers, and them calves were born this spring, and they've been purchased by Advantage Beef farmers. So they're elite genetics, they're really good performance, they're healthy calves, they've got the colostrum, and it'll be very interesting to see how that works. And so the other thing we've done within the program is in January, we launched a soil sampling service for our farmers. We all know the importance of soil, and so farmers can collect the soil sampler at any of our 7 sites. They drop the samples back to ABP. We send them to the lab, and they can get a reduced rate of their soil sampling with ABP. And I suppose that's one part of it. I suppose the other part of the program we built into it is the Advantage Beef team. So ABP have invested heavily in a farm liaison staff, which is something very new, who will work with these farmers. So to try and help them. So for example, if they don't understand how to read the soil sampling reports, the guys can call out. If they want to understand about genetics, we can go out, call out. We can see which best genetics suits their farm, where can they find these calves. So I suppose this team is very, very important to, I suppose, helping to drive down the carbon emissions from this supply chain and adding value to our farmers. And they're a group I'm very proud of. I suppose the second part of the program is rewarding farmers for more efficient beef production. And farmers involved in the scheme can get a 20-cent bonus on their cattle, which is worth 60 to 70 euros. So they're getting, I suppose, the benefit of the 60, 70 euro per animal as a bonus. They're also getting the benefit of the farm liaisons. And then if they incorporate genetics, there's potential to add another 100 to 200 euros there. So to get the bonus for a farmer, so his animals must be all of life S-Blast 4B quality assured. One move in their lifetime. There's a minimum genetic merit standard. So animals from the dairy herd must be from a beef sire with a beef subindex in the DBI of greater than 35 euro. There's maximum age limits, and they must be part of a national sustainability initiative. I suppose the second part of what we're doing to drive down our carbon footprint is the ABP Beef Benchmark Report. It was developed in collaboration with ABP and ICBF, and also Teagasc were involved in the work. And I suppose it's a world first. So this report provides carcass and greenhouse gas data on individual animals. So using the animal's genetics, using stage of slaughter, using its production system, we can get a carbon footprint on an individual animal basis. And what it's really about is how can we provide farmers with data that they can make management decisions to improve their profitability, but also their carbon footprint. And today we've given out over 5,000 of these reports to farmers. This is what does the report look like? And again, this is just a part of the report. So this farmer here slaughtered 132 animals last year. His carbon footprint on a kg of carcass weight was 10.2. The average farmer had a carbon footprint of 12.83, and the top 10% had a figure of 10.56. But this farmer is in the top 5%. So using the right genetics, killing his animals younger, he's doing a really good job. The other part of the report is genetics. So trying to highlight the important role genetics can have to on-farm profitability and sustainability. So recently launched was the Commercial Beef Value Index, which looks to identify the most profitable animals for beef production. And for this farmer, it splits his animals into top third on their genetics and bottom third. So he had 44 animals in each group. And you can see the carcass weight of the top third was 292 kilos and did a carcass conformation of R-, which is good. Whereas the bottom third had a carcass weight of 253 kilos and a carcass conformation of O+. So you can see on the same farm, the better genetics was 39 kilos heavier. Again, emphasizing the important role genetics can play. I suppose the last part is farmer communication. And look, we've put a lot of work over the last 2 years on this. So giving farmers information through the likes of AgriLand, social media, and that video I showed you, we got over 40,000 views on that video. So it shows farmers have an appetite for data and information. We have webinars, farmer events, our Advantage Farm Liaisons are on farm every day. We've monthly top tips. So every month, farmer gets a text with a landing page on information such as genetics, grassland management, etc. So we need to give the farmers information and build a relationship with them. And so this slide is just to show ABP's carbon footprint of our cattle. It's going in the right direction. We're lowering our carbon footprint, but we've more to do. So just the last couple of slides on regenerative agriculture, something that's been talked about a lot, but I suppose there's no real definition. So for ABP, what we mean by regenerative agriculture, it's an end-to-end farming system that protects and enhances our natural resources. It's based on the principles of working in harmony with our natural environment. Our approach is to mitigate climate change and support the future of Irish farming families. And we have 6 key pillars to this. Livestock is the first one. So it's genetics, it's animal welfare of the animal, but also it's the role that livestock play in, we'll say, other foods. So the likes of farmyard manure and slurry. It minimizes fertilizer uses on crops. But animal plays a huge part. The other is soil health. 95 to 98% of all our food comes from the soil. So we need healthy soil. But if you look at in Europe, at a European level, up to 70% of our soils are in degraded state. So we have lots of work to do. We need healthy soil. Water quality and water usage is really important. So how do we optimize that? Crop diversity. And what I mean by that pillar, it's the use of multi-species swarts, which we'll touch on. It's use of grazing our livestock on potential catch crops, for example, finishing lambs and the benefits that has. Biodiversity is really important. So I suppose on our trial farm in Carlow, we have 26% space for nature. And how do we build, a roadmap to improving that biodiversity on our suppliers, and hedgerows is really, really important to that. And the last pillar, which I think really should be the center of all of this, is the farmer and farmer education, because without the farmer, all these other pillars, all these other technologies won't be adopted on farm. So the farmer is so important. So I suppose to adopt the technology, to be educated, but also to, I suppose, to regenerate the farm. So to develop future farmers, so his sons or daughters that would continue farming on that farm and leave the farm in a state with good soil health, good biodiversity for the next generation. And the last point of the farmer is farmer safety. We work a lot on our own. It's a dangerous industry. So what can we do to ensure farmer safety? So any farm event we have, farmer safety is key. And if a farmer gets hurt or injured or killed, is that farm going to be regenerative? So it's really, really important. So not to spend too long on this. This is one project we're involved in. It's the UC Smart Sport project. And what basically it is cattle are grazed on three sward types. So you have your typical grass, your perennial ryegrass, you have your perennial ryegrass and white clover, or your multi-species. So your multi-species sward is basically your perennial ryegrass is included, some timothy, and your legumes, your red clover and your white clovers, and then you have your herbs. So you have your chicory, for example, or your plantain. And I suppose the results from that program is showing that multi-species swards are growing over 2 tons more grass than perennial ryegrass only, with 60% less fertilizer. The cattle are 35 days younger at the same weight. And looking at carbon reductions, there's a 14% reduction between the two systems. So again, it shows the farmer can add value to his system, but also can reduce the carbon footprint. So I suppose the next stage of that is how do we bring it to our trial farms and how do we bring it to more farmers within our production system. So I suppose to conclude, so the ABP and Irish beef production is in a good place. The ABP strategy of sustainability will ensure we meet our targets. Collaboration is key to meet these targets across industry, whether it's across the dairy and beef industry, working with Teagasc, ICBF and Borbia, and innovation research will get us where we want to go. And building and maintaining farm relationships to me is key to meeting our Scope 3 targets. So that's all for me. I hope that was I suppose we got some information, and I'll happily take any questions.
Thanks very much, Stephen. Comprehensive presentation there, and as I said, that presentation will be available on the Teagasc website after today's session. So please do send us your questions using the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. We have some in already, which we'll get to in a moment. Just looking back there on the last point that you made there, Stephen, you said the ABP sustainability strategy will ensure that we meet our sustainability targets. How confident are you that we will meet those sustainability targets? Let's say maybe taking the carbon one for a moment, the 25% decrease that's required between now and 2030. They're just looking at some of the EPA reports there during the week, and the latest one was published there in April, showing an increase of 3.6% in emissions from the agricultural sector in 2020 to 2021, and then during largely driven by the dairy sector and the use of nitrogen, but there has been an increase, a very small increase in the non-dairy cattle herd as well. Just talk, if you could maybe talk us through that.
Look, and I think we said earlier, it's going to be a challenge, but I think what I heard is where there's challenge comes opportunity, and I think we're in a really good place, and I think I suppose our competitors would love to be in the same situation we're in. First of all, we do have a plan. Once we know it's reduced by 25%. And I think industry has really rode in behind, and we're pointing in the right direction. So, we have the likes of, I said, we've Borbia, we've Teagasc, we've ICBF, and they have the data, the knowledge, and the research to back up and put us in the right direction. And even if you look at the dairy side and the beef side, we all have similar goals. So I think we're in a good place to meet that. I think there's some really good, I suppose, first of all, we need to look at ways to adopt the currently available technologies and get them to be used. And I think future technologies, for example, even the work that was published this week from Teagasc and Borbia, Teagasc and ICBF with the methane index, showing animals with an 11% difference in their methane output. So there's technologies that are not available today that will be available. I think we will get there. And look, the likes of the Borbia, the Borbia data, the Borbia system, I think we have a good place to hit our targets.
In terms of organics, Stephen, I don't recall you mentioning it during your presentation. Is that something that ABP is engaged with? And what do you see the future prospects there in that market?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So yeah, we're one of the largest. We are the largest processor of organic beef through Good Herdsman, and yeah, there's massive scope there to increase it. And looking at national policy, government policy to go from 75,000 hectares to 450. So yeah, I think it definitely is going to play a role. And I think, look, I know Borbia and ourselves are looking at where can we market that beef so definitely it is going to be, there's huge potential there for beef and lamb. And I do think from even ourselves is we can learn from our organic production systems in terms of red clover, in terms of how they feed the cattle. There's definitely there's pieces we can take from that to bring to conventional as well, which I think is really important.
I'm sure the question is on its way, but in turn, there's a huge amount of debate around the vegan movement and the percentage of meat that's in the diet of Western societies in particular. What's ABP's take on that in terms of the trends around that and the future prospects?
Yeah, look, I think it's a great question. So yeah, we hear a lot about it, to be honest with you. But I suppose if you look at the data, there is going to be, especially by 2050, there's going to be more beef. There's going to be more beef eaten. So there is going to be more markets. Maybe people will eat a little bit less, but some other poorer countries will potentially be able to afford that. So to me, there's going to be more. I think it's all about balance, Mark. You need a balanced diet. And meat or beef will play a part in that, so it is, because that's where and it feeds into it's a very healthy product. So everything in moderation, in my opinion. So I don't say that we've been heard that for so long now, but I don't think beef will be eaten. It's part of a healthy, balanced diet, and also dairy and beef. It does feed into other food products, such as your bread that you eat, or you had your cereal this morning. The farmyard manure, fertilizes them crops. And if you look at the Green Deal, they're targeting 20% less fertilizer in Europe. Without animals, we're going to have to apply more fertilizer. So I think it's all a balance. That'd be my view. I think that's common sense will prevail.
Pat, there's some really good questions coming through from our
absolutely viewers. The first question I have instances a development in the Boyne Valley of a plant seeking planning permission where there's going to be water going into the river. But the question is, what methods do the company employ to effectively clean or improve the quality of the water before it's discharged into local rivers?
Yeah, so look, I suppose it's important to say that is an area I'm on the agri side. But as you can see, basically on our accreditations and our awards, we would be leaders in that. All our water is treated, and through regulation, governmental regulation, is monitored. So that is something that we're 100% on a company on that. So we have to meet that standard, and so we go above and beyond. So that's what we do. So again, we're monitored through regulation, and also we monitor ourselves to ensure that doesn't happen.
So a couple of questions in relation to the beef sub-index and the bonus there, and also I suppose a question around that as well in relation to if you're using that, how is that balanced with the old standard for dairy farmers of making sure that they were easy calving and short gestation? Yeah, so a good question. So look, I saw the DBI, which is the Dairy Beef Index, which is used to select suitable bulls. So I suppose a key part of that index is it has a calving and a gestation part, which is roughly 40% of it, and then 60% is beef.
So I suppose what I would say to any farmer, everyone has different levels of comfortable of what calving difficulty means to them. So what I would say, using the index, you select what calving difficulty is suitable for yourself, and then you select the best beef bull possible for that. So the bulls with the best beef sub-index, but also with the best carcass weight. And what we've seen, take for example, I was looking at a bull the other day. There was 2 bulls on the farm, progeny of 2 bulls, 2 Herefords, but one bull had a calving difficulty of 3.1%. Okay, the other bull had a calving difficulty of 3.4%. But we looked at their beef characteristics. One bull had a carcass weight, a minus for carcass weight, and the other bull had a carcass weight of 16 kilos. That was within a breed. So you can get bulls, Pat, that are easy calving, short gestation, but with good beef traits, and they are out there. And that's what we don't want any hard calving or anything like that, because dairy farmers are busy, the welfare side of things, but there's bulls available that are balanced, and the DBI does do that. So but it's important to look within the sub indexes. Don't just look at the DBI figure, look within that, the B sub index and the carcass.
Okay, and I suppose that there's some questions there, and you alluded to it. I suppose the relationships between the dairy sector and the beef sector in terms of supplying a high quality calf that's going to allow profitability into the beef sector. How do you see that relationship emerging? And I think you talked about the CBV as being maybe a key element to that, and there was a question there asking for an explanation of what CBV is. So 2 questions in one.
So I might start with what is the CBV. So it's called the commercial beef value, and it's an index that's recently been developed. And basically what it is when a calf is born, he gets this CBV. So it's basically its potential, or it's how profitable that animal is for beef production. So it includes his carcass weight, genetic merit, his genetic merit for feed intake. It includes then also age at slaughter. So all that data feeds into it. So basically what it is the DBI when you strip out calving different gestation, because the calf is born out, so you don't have to worry about it. So it's going to be the future, and it's going to be how calves are traded, whether from the suckler herd or the dairy side. But I suppose again, it's back to future technologies, and I suppose it's another way we're going to reach our carbon targets with national genotyping, and I think that is potentially on the cards for Ireland. I think that will make that index more available to farmers, and it will give that bit of comfort that the animal's genotyped and he's from the sire that you're buying from. So it gives that bit of credibility to the index. So that will be the future in my view. It's all about, I suppose, when I talk about building relationships between dairy and beef farmers, for so long now, we've one group is here, the other group is here. We all need to work together, okay? And I suppose what we are doing on that is we're linking dairy farmers with beef farmers. We're working with the AI companies that have beef farmers that have used these good genetics, that they have a good cow type, that they're farmers with good facilities, the calf gets colostrum, and we're linking farmers this spring with beef farmers within our Advantage program that want to work together. Again, it can't be just all about price. Also, Pat, that you need to build that. There's a people element to it, that both farmers get on with each other, that obviously it's a fair price. And for example, the beef farmer, if he says he comes in 2 weeks or 3 weeks to collect the calf, he does come. So that's where it needs to get to, because what we really need to get to, again, to hit our targets, is before the breeding season starts, the beef farm and the dairy farm sit down together to select a team of beef bulls to use on that dairy herd. Then they agree, they will buy all their calves or proportion of their calves at X age, at X price. And then we step in, that we then, we'll process them animals through Advantage Beef program at X age. So more integration is key to strip out costs in the system and add value, but also reduce the carbon footprint.
Okay, so a question there in relation to bonuses. How much of a bonus do farmers supplying beef to ABP receive for sustainability measures? And does Stephen believe such a bonus is enough? And has ABP any plans to further incentivize farmers to adapt environmental sustainable measures?
Yeah, that's another good question. So if we look at the advanced B programs, that is a small program. And that's 20% bonus.
It's just
Your
me now.
voice,
Your sound has gone funny there on us, Stephen.
Can you hear me any better now?
No, it's gone a bit crackly on us.
I
Maybe.
promise that's not to do with 1990.
Avoiding the question.
I promise that's not the case. So it's,
Maybe if you turn off and turn on your microphone again there, maybe, Stephen, just, does that make any difference at all?
I can hear me now.
No, it's still gone very.
I don't know. Cameras is anywhere range.
No improvement, I'm afraid, there, Stephen. Unless now, what you can do is log in and log out and log in again. I know it's a bit drastic, but we're coming close to the end. But there are a few more questions. No, I'm afraid it's. Okay, thanks, Stephen. Yeah, that's a pity now. Whatever it was, it must.
You might just mention a couple of coming up things there, Mark.
So, yes, indeed. Yeah. So good opportunity to let everybody know that next week our colleagues in the agricultural catchments program are going to be running an intensive campaign to highlight all of the activities that are taking place within the agricultural catchments program. So do keep an eye out for all of the work that's going on there in through social media and website.
Can you hear me any better now?
Yeah,
Mark?
that's perfect there, Stephen. Just highlighting, Stephen, a few things that are happening next week, that we're going to be joined next week by our colleagues also on the Signpost webinar. Per Eric Melander and Jason Galloway are going to be talking about some of the water quality trends observed from the agricultural catchments program. So really interesting work that they're doing there. So Stephen, conveniently your line started to break down during the tougher questions. The questions were getting tougher there. So
I promise that wasn't intentional now, Pat. So it was like, I promise you that. So yeah, so your question was about paying and sustainability bonuses and what way that looks like. So I suppose if we just touch on the Advantage Beef program, where we are paying a sustainability bonus of 20 cents a kilo, which is worth 60 to 70 euros an animal. That is a bespoke program, okay, because it involves genetics and all what we're doing. But I suppose if you look at a national level, it's something that us personally we haven't looked at. But I suppose at an industry level, we will be behind whatever we think is the right thing to do to help as an industry to meet our targets. And so the other side I would put to that is we've heavily invested in researching, whether it be our trial farms or whether it be in national projects to help, I suppose, aid efficiencies on farm. And I really do feel that you can add huge value in terms of, for example, the role of genetics by buying them right calves. There's 100 to 200 euros there to be got. So I think working on that side of things, if we can the likes of the use of clover, can again add value and reduce costs. So that's where I'd answer that.
Okay, and I suppose a second question there, talking about ABP benefits from new markets and international customers, one for its beef on the back of sustainability. But do you believe that farmers are actually seeing a benefit in terms of the price they're getting for their product and the reputation it has vis-a-vis, I suppose, international competition?
Yeah, again, another great question. I suppose, look, it's important to highlight we export 90% of our beef, okay? So anything that we can do to give us that competitive advantage will have a benefit to our beef farmers. And in terms of sustainability, I think that does give us that competitive advantage to get into that space. And like, it is a very competitive market, so it has, I would say, it has had a huge advantage to us getting into markets and staying in them markets that that they choose Irish beef over other parts of the world. So look, and it does open their market. So I'd say we are benefiting from that, and I do think in where it's all going, with the infrastructure we have, we need to promote that and highlight what we're doing, and really show that currently we're very carbon efficient, and what we're going to do into the future is going to make us even more and make us, I suppose, be ahead of the rest.
A question there in relation to emerging technology in the feed additive space. Is this something you've looked at, and from a market perspective, it has huge capability to reduce methane, but from the perspective of acceptability to the consumer, what do you think the space we're in that regard?
Yeah, and again, look, really positive results. Like, for example, Jumbo Bear, 25-30%. My own personal view is that I suppose it's probably going to be the cherry on the cake. I suppose we haven't it available for beef yet. I think we need to try and implement some of the readily available technologies that we have currently, whether it be genetics, and get that right. And even someone said to me the other day, probably our best additive that we could use that's available is high quality grass. And Joe, the research in Teagasc and Moorpark showing Joe, the methane reductions from high quality grass Joe, can be as important as any feed additive. But from a customer point of view, I don't see any issue there with using these additive paths. Joe, Joe, it's a tightly regulated industry, like so, and there's no impact there. But so the big challenge there would be, how do you verify that animals have got that product? And a lot of the products at the minute, Joe, it's only available to a TMR, so that I suppose a lot of our cattle are finished off grass. How do you get it all year round? So it will play a part, but we're probably just a few years out yet to having real impact.
Stephen, you mentioned
a question there. Sorry,
I was just going to ask Stephen there about the max age limits that you mentioned in the presentation. What sort of age limits are you looking at, or what's the targets there?
Yeah, and so look, I suppose first of all, we have lots of different farming systems. So we have a very important suckler beef system, and then we have dairy captive beef. And I suppose there on farms are different land types, and also the animal are different. So what we set for a suckler bred steer is a 28-month system, okay? And for your dairy bred steer is a 26-month system. Your dairy bred heifer is under 24, and your suckler bred heifer is under 26, okay? So I suppose that's why, and the reason why we did that is if you look at the Teagasc Range research, they're showing that a 28-month steer on a grass-based system can be as carbon efficient. So I suppose it's to get that balance there, like so. And look, a lot of our cattle are born in the spring, so we need a spread and supply. But if we can bring maybe our 30-month cattle to 28, it's all about trying to make little incremental gains, irrespective of what farming system that you're in, like so. So I think that's really important. No one size fits all.
Okay. It's just, I suppose, a final question. I think maybe sums up some of the information or some of the stuff you were talking about on breeding. I have a full genomic tested dairy herd, full DNA registration of calves, all AI stock and no stock, all AI and no stock bull. I've seen no financial return when selling calves versus standard calves via mark sales. It's hard to justify the investment, but I suppose you were alluding to changes coming about there. Do you see that farmer being advantaged in the future from the efforts he's put in?
Yeah, no, great question. If you want him to pass on his name and his details, I'm sure we'll find a home for his calves if they're that high genetic merit. So look, that man is doing everything right, or woman, like so. So I suppose traditionally calves are bought on looks alone. So if a farmer was doing trying to use these better genetics, you mightn't see that potential at 2 to 3 weeks of age because they're being bought on looks. Whereas on the dairy side, you're buying EBI. So that's when you're buying your replacement heifers on EBI, because we know it works. On the B side, we're more on the looks of the animal. That is going to change, and with I think national genotyping, that these animals will be traded under CBV. There will be I think I suppose there'll be change in the market how these calves are paid for.
And a financial bonus for them.
And we won't go there. But I suppose the other part of it is, like, I suppose the information wasn't there on mark boards, so that's where now it is. But I think if you can build a relationship with the beef farmer, I think that understands it, because what we found, the example of 2 heifers, the big difference was 88 kilos of carcass weight difference and €500. There was only €20 difference in calf price. So again, it's about building the relationship, and that's what we're trying to do. Like that, again, that again, it can't all be about money, that, you know, that this animal is worth €100 more. But I suppose from a dairy farmer, especially with the changes, what's coming, if your calves are more marketable than the neighbor down the road, you know, that calf is going to leave your farm earlier. That beef farmer, if he's making money, is going to come back again next year to have repeat customers. And again, in terms of stress and everything, to know where your calves are going. So again, that all fits into sustainability. That my beef calves are going to Joe Blogs. He come back every year. They're being killed younger. So that's really, really important.
Okay, Stephen, we're going to have to leave it there. We're just a little over time. Thank you so much for today's presentation and answering all the questions. And thanks, Pat, for helping out with the questions as well, because there's a lot of really good questions coming through from our viewers today. I appreciate the views today. It is a busy time in the calendar for advisors around the country, so we still see a lot of people dialing in this morning. So do join us next Friday for the Signpost webinar, which is going to be looking at water quality, and we have two of our scientists from the agricultural catchments program who are going to be speaking about water quality trends and the work that they're doing in that whole space. And do keep an eye out for the media campaign that they're going to be running next week as well, all throughout next week. And I want to wish you all a lovely long weekend, and thanks for joining us today. And hopefully the sun will shine for us all. The clouds here in County Galway aren't looking too promising, but hopefully we'll get a few rays of sunshine over the weekend. So thanks again, and we'll chat to you next week.